What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Bets and Ball Games, the Week 1 edition. Before we get going, let's tell you about our friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000 when the game's over. Head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. All right. Jay Greeson joining us from Chattanooga. What's happening, my man?
Not much. Just we made it, Brian. We've made it.
Finally.
We have persevered through the heat and really bad baseball picks, and trying to convince myself that betting on WNBA games does not mean I have a problem. It means I'm just looking for action. But we've now made it. So we are here, and God bless us, everyone.
Well, I tell you what, week 0 did not disappoint. We had 4 games with double-digit spreads, but we got 3 nail biters, and FSU goes down 24-21 to Georgia Tech. And just a note to our listeners, the college football player props, a lot of times they don't become available till Saturday morning. And when they did this past Saturday, I liked Haynes King over 44.5 rushing yards, and I tweet those out. And that hit, that was he had like a 50 something in the end of the third quarter. Now with sack yardage, it wasn't a winner yet. But anyway, you might want to check my Twitter for player prop if you have that at your book, player prop market. But Georgia Tech wins, but not the end of the world for FSU. Your season's not over, especially with the new 12 team. Even with the 4 team, it wouldn't be over necessarily. Although, if it played out like last year, it would be because they were undefeated and didn't get in. But certainly not over this year. And your thoughts on that, Jakes? I know you wrote about that. I guess we say they're a team on the bubble, but you don't like that moniker.
Well, it's a phrase that is being bandied about, and it really troubles me. It's synonymous with college basketball, and we recognize teams on the bubble, inside, outside the line, Jerry Palm, bracketology, all of those things. But I don't want college football to be college basketball. I don't want the regular season to be as meaningless as college basketball's regular season is. I don't want the conference champion to be, I mean, is there a more meaningless win than the SEC basketball tournament championship? Because you play that game at noon on Sunday, you find out where you're going that at 6 o'clock that evening, and the bracket is all anybody's talking about. And to devalue the college football regular season is to take away its greatest strength. So I hate that this expansion is to 12. And if we're kidding ourselves, if we're even going to pretend that it's not going to go to 16 sooner rather than later because of the TV dollars at stake. So being on the bubble, it's great. FSU probably got hosed last year. They deserved undefeated and a power conference champion. They probably deserved an invite to the dance and would have gotten waxed in the semifinal without the quarterback. But this year, you run the table, and Saturday doesn't matter. As much fun as it was, as great as the stadium looked, as awesome as it was to have meaningful college football, as great as College Game Day was from Dublin, Ireland, and we'll talk about that in a moment. That game, it's huge for Brent Key and Georgia Tech, who, did you see the stat that he's now 5-0 against ranked ACC opponents?
Wow. And he's now, well, I gave out the underdog stat last week, and I know I tweeted it. Yeah, and I'll pull up his stats as an underdog here in a second, but he's quickly becoming underdog, big time underdog guy. The other
Well,
result,
and Tech's going to be
go ahead.
hard to handle because they're physical and they run the football. And in this era, everything's cyclical in football. I
Mhm.
mean, you think back, Bear Bryant didn't reinvent the wheel. He just added the wishbone and nobody else was doing it. So nobody knew how to defend it. And then you blink your eyes and everybody's running the wishbone. So
Right.
then everybody learned how to defend it. Now everybody's running the spread. But if you get a power run game with a quarterback who is not only capable, but willing, like Haynes King, then you're going to be able to stand toe to toe with anybody. So don't sleep on Tech.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech, a big win for them, obviously. How about SMU, who I was high on coming into the year? Nevada team that was awful last year and wasn't expected to be good, led the entire game last week, and SMU finally got it going. Preston Stone found RJ Maryland for a 34-yard touchdown pass late. They outscored Nevada 16-0 in the fourth quarter. Montana State had to outscore New Mexico 21-0 in the fourth quarter to prevent Bronco, Mendenhall from getting a W in his first game at New Mexico. And then Hawaii did not cover against Delaware State and actually was only up 7 going in the fourth quarter. So we got surprisingly close games last week. Any other takeaways from you from week 0?
Well, I think the books probably did really well if the dogs went 4-0. So,
Yep. Yeah.
uh, um, but no, I think the biggest winner from Saturday's week 0 was just the absolute joy that college football fans everywhere got to experience and the eternal high hopes of how good College Game Day on ESPN. Hey, it's easy to bash the 4-letter network. I mean, they do a lot of things wrong and they step on their own ties quite frequently. But I think ESPN College Game Day may be actually even better than Barkley and TNT inside the NBA. With this crew, now don't get me wrong, if they could find a suitable replacement for Desmond Howard, then it's going to be it's gold standard. But with the addition of Nick Saban in the middle of that panel
Yeah.
and the craziness that Pat McAfee and his crew bring, it is an absolute joyous circus. And I think Saban completely leaned into the mystique and his reputation of being arguably the worst. I mean, the whole rat poison, all of the predictions and everything that guys that sitting behind those on those podiums have to do. I wrote down a couple of quotes that Saban unloaded that I thought were just brilliant. He said, "This is the ultimate hypothetical situation. If you were in a press conference talking to McAfee and guys trying to make predictions about what was going to happen in Tech, Florida State, this is the ultimate hypothetical situation. If you were in a press conference, you'd be getting 8 out by me. I'd be wearing you out." And he would. He'd be pounding that Coca-Cola bottle on the podium and rat poison and crap through a goose and throwing his hands up. And I mean, but
I
now he's sitting behind the mic and he is, well, one, he's the best to ever do it. And I know you are forever going to be bullish on Spurrier, but what Saban did over
3-1
17 years.
straight up and 4-0 against Saves. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh, More rings than he could put on this hand. More rings than he can put on this hand. Okay. And I'm an Auburn graduate and I'm singing the praises of what he did in Tuscaloosa for 17 years. But he's going to be every bit as good. And the yin to the yang sitting next to McAfee is going to be just a Saturday morning treat.
Yes, I concur. All right, I got the stat for Brent Key. He's now been an underdog 16 times, 13-3 against the spread with 10 outright wins, and he's been an underdog, or I'm sorry, a double-digit underdog 10 times, 7-3 against the spread with 5 outright wins. So Brent Key doing some good things at Georgia Tech. Okay, so let's move to week 1. SEC, obviously. I'm going to go to Bet Online. I'm going to share at least where we stand now because obviously these lines are always on the move. Just get you updated on where we stand with the SEC team. So, Oklahoma on Friday night, they are 42.5 point favorites to Temple with a total of 58.5 at Bet Online. Then we have Georgia at Bet Online. It's minus 13.5 with a little bit of an extra juice price, minus 113. Totals 48.5. If you like Clemson to win outright, it's plus 455 on the money line. Virginia Tech, who I'm a big fan of in week one, minus 13 with a minus 115 price at Vandy, total 47.5. The Commodores are plus 395 on the money line. Then we go down to Miami at Florida. Miami's minus 2.5 at a minus 115 price. So Gators plus 2.5 minus 105. So if you want to buy the Gators to plus 3, um, I'm guessing they would let you do that for a minus 125 price. But I'm not sure. Gators plus 125 on the money line. The total is 54. Texas is minus 32 with a total of 60 against Colorado State. And I believe that's been one of our bigger line moves this week. As I let me go to the line move history here. 1 second. Here we go. So looks like the Westgate Superbook in Vegas, Jay Cornegay, Jeff Sherman, and that staff. So they opened Texas 35.5. Okay, looks like on August 20th, so it was 8 days ago. It had a 3-point move to 32, and now it's 31.5. So that movement was not this week, but in the last 8 days. So let's see, scrolling down. South Carolina minus 21 at home to Old Dominion. ODU plus 870 on the money line, total of 52. We've got Alabama minus 32 to Western Kentucky, 59.5 point total. We've got A&M minus 3, minus 105. We're going to talk about that game here shortly. A&M minus 155 on the money line. Notre Dame plus 135 to win outright, total 46.5. Kentucky is 28 to Southern Miss. I feel like that number's a lot bigger.
Yeah, it seems like it was like 24, 25
Yeah.
a couple, 3 weeks ago when we were
Yeah.
kicking on the early lines.
Yeah. It was, 26 until the 22nd. So I guess it was last Thursday. It's ticked up from 26 to 28, total of 50 for Southern Miss at Kentucky. And then LSU 4.5 against USC in Vegas. I'll be there. The Trojans plus 163 on the money line, and the over under is 64.5. I got over 63 last week. All right, let's talk about Texas A&M as they play host to Notre Dame. Now Notre Dame lost their starting offensive tackle, and I heard a podcast with the Notre Dame beat writer for The Athletic talking about it was probably their third to fourth player they could not afford to lose. And Phil Steele's national unit rankings have A&M with the sixth best D line in the country, despite losing Walter Nolan. And they've got Nick Scorton, the transfer from Purdue. And I think A&M's going to dominate up front on that D line matchup with Notre Dame's O line, and that's part of why I like A&M. I have more on that, but I feel like I've been hogging the microphone. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm with you, and I think this is a monstrous test for Mike Elko. In a and I mean, a lot of times you have conversations about getting ready for conference play. I mean, there are a lot of SEC matchups. Auburn is playing Alabama A&M, so I mean, there's are they going to sleepwalk a little bit? Yes. Mike Elko cannot afford that with a packed house and an alumni base that just ponied up more than $50 million to get rid of the previous regime. And I really think there's more to be said about this being the Duke alumni game. Elko
Right.
getting lured from A&M and the quarterback getting in
Riley
the
Leonard.
portal and Riley Leonard going to Notre Dame. And who's going to know Riley Leonard's strengths and weaknesses better than Mike Elko? So I'm with you 100% on A&M. There's no way to get prepared, especially after spending the last couple of years in the ACC, for what 105,000 screaming Aggies are going to bring come Saturday in College Station. I just think this is, and I think Notre Dame is very much a playoff team, but I think this is a tall ask going on the road in week one with a Texas A&M staff and roster that truly is already desperate.
And look, if Notre Dame can get this win, it will be so enormous because then you look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, obviously FSU doesn't look like it's going to be nearly as tough of a challenge as we might have thought at this time last week. And Notre Dame gets 2 weeks to prepare for that one, and FSU doesn't. And it's November 9th. We're going to be cold in South Bend. Those Florida boys from Tally may not like that. And I mean, so if Notre Dame gets this one, I mean, they will cruise into a home game with Louisville 4-0. And if they get that one, then they've got Stanford. Well, Georgia Tech and Atlanta might not be that easy. Then Navy before they get to FSU. I mean, their schedule is really soft. But then, like we talked about with FSU last week, Notre Dame will still be alive if they don't win. But some more reasons why I like A&M. Well, first off, I just think it was a toxic locker room for more than last year, for 2 or 3 years under Jimbo. They were 0-4 in one possession games last year. I think just a fresh start, a new regime is perfect for that locker room. And, he hit the portal hard, to get some, new blood in there. And Connor Wigman is back, 16-2 TDI-NT ratio for his career. And this is what, just to give you a taste of what Elko did at Duke. So Cutcliffe goes 3-9 and 4-8 in his last 2 seasons. Then Elko comes in there and goes in year 1, 9-4 straight up, 10-3 against the spread. And then with Riley Leonard getting hurt against Notre Dame, I think that was the 5th game. And then he came back a little too early against FSU a couple weeks later, and then didn't finish that game. And I'm pretty sure he was done for the year at that point. And yet he still went 8-5. So Elko can coach. He's been at A&M before. He was a DC for Jimbo, and 100,000 strong at Kyle Field. I like the Aggies. All right. Let's.
Well, if we're talking about new regimes and wanting to put your best foot forward, I really expect Alabama to play really well against Western Kentucky. I think those kids have a sizable chip on their shoulder to come out in the first game post Saban. And I know that number 32 is pretty lofty, especially if TJ Finley's going to do some things with the Hilltoppers as their starting quarterback. But Alabama still has a load of 5-stars, and I really think they're going to hang half 100 at least on Western.
Yeah. And will that be enough? It's debatable because Western Kentucky, they got a little bit of offense. Got a pretty good group of receivers. So we'll see. That's a pass for me. I can't lay 32 there. But all right. Let's see. So USC and LSU. I think we both talked about how we like the over. Are you still good with the over at 64.5? I got 63 last week.
Well, it's because you're a smart man. You're the opposite of Forrest Gump. You are not stupid as the stupid does. 64. There is no other play but the over if you're looking at a total. And you bring up, did you say the Alabama Western Kentucky total is like 58? That may be something I'm eyeing in my Thursday picks tomorrow at the 5 at 10, because you're right, TJ Finley and those receivers. But I think Jalen Milroe and Alabama's going to go up and down the field on them too.
Yeah.
So I actually like LSU as a small favorite more than I like over 64. But if you feel obligated to play the total, and that total was great to us last year with those two anemic defenses.
Yes.
I still think over 64 is completely doable with those offenses and those skill position guys.
The side is 4.5 at Bet Online and most other books. Looks like Circa is at 5. Because we
Dude,
had
you're
seen
going to Vegas. There are going to be some crazy Cajuns in Vegas this weekend.
30,000.
Yeah.
30,000. I did a radio with Jimmy Ott in Baton Rouge last week, and I'm gonna see him out there. In fact, he's doing his show at Circa tomorrow and Friday, but I don't get until 4:55 on Friday. But yeah, he told me 30,000 Cajuns. What could go wrong?
Nothing. In Vegas, nothing. No. Hey, I hope it makes me think of the taser scene in The Hangover where they light up Zach Galifianakis
Oh God,
and
so good.
Rob Riddle. What a great movie. What
Great
a great movie.
Great movie. Are you an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify, or are you an employee that's simply tired of answering to the man? If so, let me tell you about our guy, Andy Ludecke, and his business, My Perfect Franchise. Net. Like you, Andy had it with corporate America. He was married with one kid and another on the way. He wanted to start his own business and did just that. And now he has multiple businesses, Big Red Trash Company, a gutter company. He can help you do the same thing. Here's how it works. You go to Andy's website, myperfectfranchise.net. You set up an intro call, a 1-hour consultation, and best of all, 100% free. You tell Andy about your passions, skills, goals, the time and money you have to invest in this endeavor. Then Andy figures out for you what sort of business fits your DNA. He registers you with potential franchises. He'll find the best franchise that suits the vision and corporate culture you want. And before you know it, you'll be on your way, and Andy will have you making greenbacks galore. So what are you waiting for? Reach out to my guy, Andy Ludecke, at myperfectfranchise.net. All right, let's talk some Florida, Miami. I gave you the line from Bet Online earlier. It's 2.5. There were a couple of threes early in the week. They might have all disappeared as I'm going to my live lines. Where is Florida and Miami? Okay, here we go. Yeah, it looks like 2.5 across the board. So, um, I would buy, like, especially in the Bet Online scenario where they've got Miami, or I'm sorry, Florida plus 2.5 at minus 105. If you don't have to pay like a minus 135 juice, I'd buy it to 3. Um, and it's a small opinion for me on the Gators. But I do have some stats on Cristobal, but before and we don't know about Montreal Johnson yet. I think Florida's putting out the depth chart today, and by the way, we're coming to you on Wednesday. If I didn't mention that earlier, if the depth chart doesn't come out today, it'll be tomorrow. But all reports out of Gainesville have been that he's been recovering nicely from having that knee scoped about a month ago. So I think he's going to play now. How healthy or whether he can do 25 carries, I doubt that. So we'll see on that. But your thoughts on Miami at Florida?
I'm with you. I mean, it's not my favorite game of the weekend, but I do like the Gators. We talked about even for the new staffs being a little bit desperate to put a best foot forward in home games. There is no coach more desperate than Billy Bob Napier, and this one would go a long way for not only the psyche in the room, but among Gator Nation. So I'm with you, but you mentioned something that I think is warranted to discuss, and I think it's interesting too because I saw a story that I'll reference here in a second. But a lot of these teams are releasing depth charts, and they are absolute jokes. Tennessee released its depth chart, and on offense, Nico Amaliava was listed as a starting quarterback, and I think they had 2 offensive linemen listed as starters, and every other position had at least one, if not multiple, Brian
Or
Edwards or Jay
or
Greeson or Lee Greeson or Matthew McConaughey or Rob Riggle. I mean, they are doing it. It's lip service at best. But then I saw a story this morning that Kirby Smart has alluded that the SEC is probably going to move to mandating that they release availability sheets,
like Big
not
Ten did.
not unlike the
Good.
NFL injury report, because of the explosion in what is legalized online gambling.
I would hope Sankey would be on top of that. I mean, the Big Ten started that last year, and I mean,
Right.
come on, why is the SEC behind the times on that? I hope that's enacted immediately.
Yeah.
But was Kirby referencing like next year or soon
No,
or?
I think he was talking about within weeks, not within seasons.
Okay, good. Well, it's about time. And programs need to be fined if they like the NFL. I mean, I'm not saying as much as the NFL fines them when they do stuff like that, but yeah, yeah, that is needed big time. All right, couple stats on Cristobal. Okay, when he's been favored at Miami just in 2 short years, 14 times as a favorite, 4-10 against the spread. However, one of those spread covers was 70-13 against Bethune-Cookman, and another one was 41-7 at Temple. So really only two spread covers in my
Yeah, I
mind.
mean, again, against teams with a heartbeat, yes.
Yes.
Uh, and I mean, I don't know who has the bigger desperation edge in this one, because on paper, Miami's better than Florida. I
Yeah.
mean, on paper, Miami may be the class of the ACC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Cristobal can get out of Cristobal's way, they could chase the crystal ball. See what
Right.
I did there?
Yeah. That was well done. Yeah,
Thanks.
no, I mean, I mean, I've never questioned his recruiting chops, same as Calipari, but you c-
Yeah.
you you can question the hell out of their in-game coaching, that's for sure. And I will say this about Billy Bob, he has been good as an underdog. Only 8-6 at UF, but 12-4-1 ATS as an underdog at Louisiana. So he's now 20-10-1 against the spread in 31 games as an underdog. And Cristobal, just in road games, they've had 10 road games, regardless of favorite, underdog, whatever. 5-5 straight up, 4-6 against the spread. I like the Gators, but like I said, and Jay said himself, not my favorite play on the board, and I won't be heavily involved from a amount perspective. On the contrary, I will be heavily invested on Georgia. And, there are a lot of 14s early in the week and not so many anymore. In fact, I don't see any 14s. It's 13 and a half across the board, including Bet Online, except for Circa. They are at 13, and that's good to know because I'll be hanging out at Circa on Saturday, and I'd like to get the best number possible with my cash bets, my cash money bets. Sometimes you'd rather win a $100 cash money bet than a $120 bet back home that's on credit, or
Right.
150
Well,
really.
and then because then you get that greenback in your hand, and you can trade that instantly for a couple of Bud Heavies and maybe
Maybe
a
a couple of blackjack hands.
couple of blackjack hands. Absolutely. The
Yes.
last time I went to Vegas, my wife and I went, and uh, we paid for the whole trip because we hit an exacta walking through the sports book on a Louisiana racetrack, and it covered our gambling on the first bet we made. It was glorious.
Nice. In New Orleans, what's it called? Fairgrounds?
Something like that. They were riding. They were in the buggies, man. It
Oh,
was
they were in the buggies.
yes, it was ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
So and we got like and one of them was like 30-1 that finished second, and she's the one who picked it. So
Nice.
uh it paid heavy duty odds, and man, oh man, you get that first win in Vegas and it takes all the pressure off, you know it?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I usually have good luck in Vegas. Biloxi, yeah, Biloxi's always been very bad to me at blackjack. Not so much the sports betting since that started, but yeah, I've walked out of the Beau Rivage a loser many times. All right, so why do we like Georgia? Well, 46-2 straight up their last 48 games, and 36 of those wins by at least 14 points. Um, yeah. And I'm fully expecting Trevor Etienne to be suspended. Now, it's nothing official on that. And Smile Munden, I expect them to be suspended. If they're not, great. I still like Georgia, whether they're suspended or not. And then Roderick Robinson, the running back, I don't know if he's been officially ruled out, but I know he's at least doubtful with turf toe. So there's that. But even with that, I'm expecting those three guys to not play. Still love Georgia here.
I do too. One, Carson Beck is, I mean, you got to feel pretty comfortable with a guy with that many reps against that much talent going on 4+ years in Athens. Two, I mean, Georgia can suspend half its roster and they're just going to replace 5 stars with 5 stars. That's the way Kirby has loaded that roster. And three, I hear a lot of people talking about how this is going to be very similar to the last time Clemson and Georgia played, and it was that defensive just slugfest a couple, 3 years ago. This
Pick
Clemson
six.
defense
Only
is
score.
not that defense. That defensive line had 4 dudes who are now starting on Sundays. This Clemson defense is going to be fine in the ACC,
Yeah.
but I did. Were you the one who told me the stat? There are 4 schools playing FBS football who did not have a transfer in this last portal cycle.
I'm going to guess them. Iowa, Clemson. Give me a hint. You know them?
Yeah, I do. The 4
Okay.
schools are Clemson,
Iowa.
Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Oh, I thought Iowa. I didn't think Iowa got any. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So basically Clemson,
Yeah,
because you
Clemson.
can't take
I mean,
transfers in
Clemson and the
military.
military academies.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I mean, we've talked about it. That's like it being a sports writer, and everybody else gets to use laptops, and you decide to use a typewriter and want to dictate it over the telephone. No, you're just not as efficient, and you're not going to be as good as everybody else if you refuse to get in the portal. Now, I understand it. I do. I mean, laud the fellow for being principled and standing with his convictions. But okay, everybody else is getting better players, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, you had a few positions of need. I mean, just go grab 4 or 5 guys. You don't have to have an influx of 20, transfers every year, Dabo. Yeah, I think. Look, I don't think it's going to be as nasty a pounding as what Dan Lanning and Bo Nix got in their debut at Mercedes-Benz 2 years ago when they lost 49-3 and got run out of the building before the first half was over, or maybe even the first quarter. It's not going to be that ruthless of a pimp slap, but it's going to be enough of a beatdown that I think the national narrative will be what a knucklehead, if not downright dumbass, Dabo is for not using the portal. And we both like Georgia. And just a reminder, we both also like Carson Beck's over on his passing yards prop for the season, which, if memory serves, is around 3,150, and he had 3,941 last year. The only concern is injuries,
Yes.
or else it's going to be an easy winner. All right, let's reemphasize our love for Vatek against Vandy. You go first.
Well, I think that is a roster and a team that I released the other day in the 5 at 10. I've got Virginia Tech winning the ACC and getting in the playoff.
Would not shock me. I think they're definitely they might have the best quarterback.
I agree, and they've got a doable schedule. Almost every meaningful game is in Blacksburg, and this is a golden opportunity to take a big stride. And yeah, Vandy's the 16 out of the 16 teams in the SEC, but at the end of the year, you can say, well, you got to win over an SEC team, and I mean it's better than playing Old Dominion or Alabama A&M.
Yeah, and so Vatek was hot at the end of last year, 5-2 both straight up and against the spread in its last 7, but those wins were beat downs by 17, 28, 26, 38, and 21, and none of those teams were G5. Now, they're ass candy conference teams, ACC squads, but you know, they're FBS teams. They weren't beating up on FCS teams like some SEC teams do occasionally. And Kyron Drones, 17-3 TDI and T ratio last year, had more than 1,000 rushing yards until subtracting sack yardage, still 818 net yardage. And Vandy, 2-10 both straight up and against the spread last year, lost most of their best players to the portal. Jay and I, we obviously like Diego Pavia, but he's going to be running for his life. We like Vatek to cover. If you can get Vatek -7 in the first half, will you get a little lesser taste of that? Because I will.
Yeah, but I think depth is an advantage. I mean, I'll probably play a little bit on the first half, but 12 and a half seems not only fair but advantageous. And you and I talked about how many folks are going to make the trip to Vegas from Red Stick. Those fools from Blacksburg, the half of Vandy's facility will be orange and brown. Man, those unis suck.
God, aren't they the worst
They're
uniform?
terrible.
Like orange, like maroon.
Yeah.
Like leave the orange off it. I mean, when they wear all maroon at home, like back in the Michael Vick days, I kind of liked them, but they didn't put the orange
Oh,
gnarliness on there. What are they
just
doing?
bad.
Yeah, I love going to games at Vanderbilt. Well, not the last one I went to, but it's just so fun in Nashville. And then
Well, if you're in Nashville. There's absolutely zero traffic.
I mean, you
Uh,
just prop your feet up on the bleacher in front of you. You know, you can get as comfortable as you want in those stands.
One of my buddies, who's a big LSU fan, he said he tells a great story about one of the times LSU went over there and the whole place was packed with Cajuns. I mean, LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Bama, Tennessee, when they play at Vandy, it's a de facto home game. Kentucky even. Uh, about midway through the second quarter, the LSU fans had bought all the beer at Vandy Stadium. They had sold out of beer.
Before
So
halftime.
yeah, before halftime. So late during halftime, all these people are still in line, and they make a phone call because they realize how much money they're leaving on the table. And the beer truck shows up,
Pulls in.
and these
Standing
people
ovation.
are just standing O for this guy, unloading case after case. Some of the LSU fans are helping him bring the beer to the concession stand.
I bet those Cajuns are going crazy. We
Yes,
got
I
booze.
mean, high fives. I mean,
Love
uh,
it. I
man,
love it.
just a joyous event. Of course, LSU probably won like 59-14. So
Sure. Yes, that's outstanding. So, okay, so we like Georgia, we like Vatek. Small, we bet. God, we don't disagree at all this week, do we?
no.
Small
Well,
opinions on
you're
Florida.
not as high on Bama as I am,
I
and
don't like Bama this week. I don't like the game either way.
but
So,
I probably will put over that 58-59 number in my picks column, which comes out Thursdays during the football season at timesfreepress.com.
yes. Okay. So I mean, I'm not going to be involved in the Kentucky game. What?
I think UTC is pretty good. Just knowing how many folks they had, and we had a good story in today's Fish Wrapper about one of the reasons they have such high expectations in the Southern Conference is because they did not have any of their quality guys get in the portal, which is huge for an FCS school. But you can't bet against a sold out Vols team, no matter what they're laying with that offense, because they just score so quickly, and they throw the deep ball as well as anybody in America. So I don't like that game. I think the only play you have in South Carolina is Old Dominion. I think there could be some sphincter tightening in Old Dominion is one of the class programs of the lower divisions, and
they got an
21.
All-American linebacker too. I believe his name's Jason Henderson, and he'll be all over the field for UK fans.
And
It is Jason Henderson, 170 tackles last year, 19 and a half TFLs. So I would be on the lookout for him. Yeah, he was a second team All American each of the last 2 years.
so Old Dominion getting 3 touchdowns, the best player on the field. Maybe a little sleepwalk scenario. Got no idea what the new quarterback replacing Spencer Rattler is going to be. But no, the bigger plays for me this week are LSU, Georgia, and Virginia Tech. And I'm
Yep.
with you. I like
So our friends at Bet Online, they do not. Yeah. Our friends at Bet Online do not have the FCS lines up, so I'll just share a few of those with you. The Tennessee UT game, or the Tennessee UTC game, is 38.5 and 57. If I had to gun to my head, had to pick it, I'd make go over 57. Mississippi State is 25.5 to Eastern Kentucky. Ole Miss is 42 to Furman. By the way, I don't have really any opinions on these games. So I don't know anything about these FCS schools. Auburn is 48 to Alabama A&M. And is that all of the SEC? That might be.
Well,
All right. So
Arkansas and Missouri play Thursday night against inferior opponents too.
Right here. I'm sorry. Yes, correct. And so I got those lines up here at the top. Arkansas is 48.5 and Missouri is 46. Yes. All right. So do you have any picks on any non-SEC games of the rest of the week one card?
Well, on the week 1 card, I actually think I think this is a very treacherous spot for James Franklin and Penn State going to Morgantown with a completely jacked up group of Mountaineers. And I think West Virginia is going to be, if they weren't in such a difficult draw, I think West Virginia could be one of those sneaky teams that you look up at the end of the year and they're 10-2. But I mean, if they beat Oklahoma State, you're talking about a team. If they can go to Stillwater and win, you're talking about a team that could be the Big 12 winner and in a playoff.
Yeah, they got a good quarterback in Garrett Green. 13 rushing touchdowns, 772 rushing yards, 6.4 yards per carry average. And then he completed, well, his completion percentage wasn't great, but 16 to 4 TDI and T ratio. He's got his second, third, fourth, and fifth leading receivers back. And he's got his top 2 running backs back. And Phil Steele's national unit rankings have West Virginia's O-line ranked number 11 in the country. So, yeah, Penn State better come to play this week, no doubt. So I kind of lean North Carolina -2, or actually 1.5 at Circa against Minnesota, and actually 2.5 at Bet Online. So if you like Minnesota tomorrow night, Bet Online is where you want to go because that's the only 2.5 out there. Minnesota got a transfer quarterback from FCS that I haven't seen play, and so that just makes me hesitant. I think North Carolina's got the better roster, so I don't know if I'll play it or not. I lean Jacksonville State with R-Rod tomorrow night -2.5 against Coastal Carolina. Friday night, I don't really have any likes in the TCU Stanford, or I may just watch and maybe do some live betting if something looks interesting. I will point out before we get out of here, James Madison was -5.5 yesterday morning at Charlotte, and Charlotte's coach, who wardrobe is always very interesting. He at a presser said nearly 50% of their starters are out with injuries. So I saw that retweeted, and then I went and bet James Madison -6, and like 2 hours later it was 8.5. And I purposely did this so I could bet it the other way, thinking it would go more than 7. Well, it went all the way to 9.5. I should have bet it at 8.5. Should have waited till 9.5. All right, other games of note. I think most of them involve the SEC, right?
I agree. And
And
I think it's important, especially for our friends out there who are, if you're loyal to your online partner, that's great. But I know Bet Online's got great prices across the board. Don't be afraid to shop. I mean,
yeah,
case in point, if you look across all the available lines, and this, it may seem like no big deal, but the difference in, say, what Bet ESPN is offering South Carolina minus 17 and a half, and the rest of them have South Carolina or Old Dominion plus 21 or 21 and a half. I mean, that's a huge swing of 4 points.
yes, indeed. And look, the travel spots, Georgia Tech laying 21 to Georgia State. I think Georgia State's rebuilding, but tough travel spot. And that's on Saturday, whereas FSU gets to wait until Monday to play Boston College. I might be on Boston College, by the way. We'll see what the line is come Monday night. Oh, it's already dipped. Well, Circa's got it 17, South Point 15 and a half. But Thomas Castellanos gave FSU a lot of problems last year scrambling. And FSU, looked like garbage last week and had to travel back from Ireland. So
Well,
we'll
travel back from
see.
Ireland, and I mean, the better team won Saturday. Tech,
Yeah.
I mean, you take that first
Yeah.
drive out,
FSU made
and
a 59 and a 52-yard field goal.
I mean, okay, uh, the ukulele kid made a couple of big fourth down conversions on that final drive, but I mean, Tech was in control of the football game for the vast majority of that thing.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Yes, they were. All right. That's gonna wrap it up. And you always hit me up on my Twitter. The handle's at Vegas B Edwards, and look for some player props and maybe some live bets throughout the weekend. What else you got, Jay? Before we get out of here.
Nothing. Just happy that we're back actually talking about games and matchups, and not as Nick Saban would heckle us about doing all the projections and summer rat poison.
Yes. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, best of luck with all your bets, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Bet Online. Thanks to Andy Ludecke and MyPerfectFranchise.net. We are over and out.